revolves around my life. Oh no.
I was gonna say, just before like this call, so at 10 p.m. Because it's 10:30 now, I messaged her and I was like, my power's gone out. I pulled out my air fryer and then a spark blew and everything turned off. So I ran to my next door neighbor because he works in construction, and I was like, can you help me turn my power back on? So we went into my garage and we did all the flicky thing, you know, where you flick the switches on. Nothing happened. And then he went and checked his box and he's like, it looks the same as mine. And I was like, well, then why is mine not working? So then I tried calling our emergency electrician from the real estate, and he's like, oh, we don't service them anymore. And I'm like, well, you're the only number that I have. And he's like, we only do the city. And I was like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, you're just out of luck.
Well, then he said, is there like a meter box outside? And I said, yeah, there is, but there's a big padlock on it. We don't have a key for it. So then he's like, you're going to have to break the padlock off. So I'm there like twisting the padlock, trying to like snap it off. And then I turned it, and then I was like, Courtney, I got power.
Good for you.
The things we do.
The adversity.
Yeah. What are your plans for today?
I have work at 8 till probably about 6, but then I'll train for the first time since my show.
That's
and
exciting.
I have to catch up with all of my clients. They were very patient for a couple of days, but it's not like, you know, they need their stuff.
Yeah. Because you weren't meant to do that show, were you? You just decided to kind of last minute?
Yeah. So I was going to do a show. Well, actually, I wasn't going to do a show until the spring. Started working with my new coach in July, and he was like, let's bring much more symmetry to your physique. Like, I don't want you to have to get on stage and, you know, get placed last when you're, you know, probably not going to really like that. If, you know, what's the point, you know? So I was like, yeah, I agree. Let's wait until the spring. And then we did 2 months of a building phase. He goes, you know, somehow you're much leaner, and we were increased our calories. Let's try a show this fall. So I was like, I don't really know of any before Olympia. And then he's like, okay, we found one in Columbia. It was in November, the same exact day. And I thought that the Fort Lauderdale show only had wellness masters. So I was like, I can't do a master's show. So I was going to fly to Columbia. Then at 2 weeks before the show, I found out at Olympia that it had wellness open. So I was like, it's my backyard. So I only have to drive 20 minutes to a show. Like, that's so cool. So that's why I chose to do it.
Have you got another one coming up?
No, I don't think that there's any, it's like the last one of the season. There's only one more wellness pro show, and that will be in Brazil. And there's no way I can take the time off to go fly. It would be so cool, but I can't do it. And I think with my placing, and my feedback, if I want to go win a pro show, I'm going to have to really come in exactly like they want. So there's a lot of controversy about that placing at that show, but we won't go into that one. Yeah. No, and honestly, like, I understand the sport. I just want to, you know, I want to bring my best, and I know that that's going to take, because I only had a 2-month like building phase last time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was. I kept telling him, "Oh, it's still great to have an off season." That really, you know, wasn't an off season. So, you know, I'm excited.
Yeah. A little bit before we get into things, I got my lips tattooed today, so I'm not. That's why they look so dark. And if I go to drink it, if I go to drink some water and it dribbles all down my mouth, that's why.
I want to get those. I want to get it done too. I have a client that's did it hurt?
No, you're pretty numbed out. It's only afterwards you feel like your lips are like, because Connie's had hers done too. It feels like your lips are like in front of you. Yeah. But we were just saying before, because I was like, how many layers did she do? And she's like, oh, she did 3. And I was like, it's not that it was hurting. I just get so impatient and like so restless. So I was like laying there and I was like, do we really have to do a 3rd one? I just want to go home.
I'm the same. I can't, like, getting my hair done, my nails done, I get anxious. So I can understand. Yeah. I'll have to see what they like, how they look after today because I'm like interested in the progression. Because obviously that
I'll
like
send you daily photos.
They get they get worse and then they get better. So they're gonna go darker and then they're gonna start to like scab. It's like getting a tattoo. Like they're gonna start to scab a little bit and kind of go like awkward. And then you're like, oh my God, this is way too dark. And then they start to like fade and settle. So like after a week, they'll be like perfect.
Yeah, and
That's
they
not
say
very long. That doesn't take long at all then.
yeah,
No, and then they last like 3 years.
and
Ooh,
they
that's
say not to get your lips wet. And so I was like, oh, that's easy. And then I came home and I was like, oh, there's a lot of times that I get my lips wet throughout the day.
Like, oh.
I feel like that would be very hard. I'm like constantly eating.
Yeah, well, that's what I was worried about. I was so worried about not being, but I was fine. You just like, you can't bite into things. So you got to like place it in your mouth rather than like an apple, you would have to cut up and put it in your mouth.
Yeah. Well, I've had filler in my lips. Not for the last like year and a half, but I remember it was like really hard to eat anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth the things that we do, right? For looks and stuff that are so subtle. The things that we do.
And we were just talking about how we regret them. I've just had my eyebrow tattoo lasered off because I regretted that. And then I was like, oh, but I'm getting my lips tattooed next week.
I need to get my I had my eyebrows microbladed when I lived in Washington D.C. in like 2018, and I haven't had them retouched. But they did like such a good like there's spots that need to be fixed, but like
Those are good.
at the time, yeah, like I don't have anything filling them in. At the time,
That's
though,
nice.
when they were done, I was like,
Yeah, they're like caterpillars.
I looked like one of those just like what?
Yeah.
I was just, how am I gonna live my life like this? Do I need to get bangs? But
Yeah.
they fade. You live and you learn.
Do you guys find, because like we're all active people, with anti-wrinkle, it lasts like 2 weeks for me and then it starts fading. And I'm like, I'm at the point where I'm like, do I even bother with it anymore? Because if it's only going to last a certain amount of time, like I just got my forehead done and look, it's already like, that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What I started doing, because our metabolism, where you like, especially if you're like grimacing when you're training, you're going to work through it way faster. But what I've started learning, just because we use a lot of Botox and Dysport in my field of medicine, so one of the things we do is alternate which one you use, even though it's like they're both botulism toxin, but they work slightly different on the receptor. So if you alternate which one you use every time you get it done, it's much less likely that you're going to build a tolerance. Because I had the same thing. Botox wasn't doing it for me.
The last lady that did it said that I could have built up an intolerance to the protein in it.
Yeah.
So she tried Xenom, I think it was called.
And
that worked heaps better. But still, I'm like, with how much I have to get in, like it's a ridiculous amount that I have to get injected. Like I don't even want to say the number. I
know. I have the same. I have a very expressive forehead. And like, I feel like I can be so much more stoic with patients. They're telling me stuff that I shouldn't be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, hey, got it.
Yeah. Just really trying not to raise my eyebrows lately.
It's kind of like a cheat.
Yeah. All right. So Courtney, what was your sweet and sour for the week?
I made a new girlfriend, and that sounds like super. It's not like a lesbian thing, but I made a new gym friend. And we know, like Dazz and I, we were just talking about that, how it's like it's harder when we're adults, like to make friends, right? And then so like finding someone that like, because when we get older, we really prioritize like our time and our energy and stuff, right? And we don't want to like waste our time when it comes to like a relationship too, right? So I found kind of like a new gym friend, and we hang out afterwards, and we're just like little high school kids again. So that's my sweet. How about you?
My sweet was well, you know how I'm on like hormone replacement therapy?
Yeah.
I recently remember how I said in our first episode that the estradiol gel was like driving me nuts, having to put that on every day. Well, I switched over to the dot, so I only have to change like a little patch twice a week. Which is like, I'm so grateful for it because I got so sick of rubbing gel into my inner thigh every day.
I'm doing that for testosterone cream right now.
Yeah, and but the gel is worse because it's like slippery.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gooey gooey.
Yeah. What was your sweet for the week, Sunny?
I think most weeks, having one sweet is a great week. But this week, I'm having a hard time picking one sweet because it was filled with so many really, when you compete, there's so many good things that you can choose from. But I'm going to go with my sweet was my best friend from Ohio found out she knew I was going to compete, but she didn't know if she was going to come to Columbia or Miami, and she was waiting for me to sign the contract, but she came and she surprised me, and we got to spend the week together. So that entire experience, like getting surprised by her, having her be here, like that was the sweetest ever. So I'll go with that.
That's so nice. That was all like the posting on your Instagram stories, right? With her.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Courtney to do that for me.
Soon I'll just like hop on a plane.
Yeah.
Like I have no idea where in the country you are, but come pick me up.
What was your sour?
My sour, I had an anxiety attack at the gym, which like, I don't know if either of you guys have had that before, but it's just like, we just get like so overwhelmed and all of a sudden, and then you have like the pre-workout kicking in too.
Oh,
and it's like, yeah. So I've had it before and it sucked, and it's just one of those days.
Yeah, great.
The caffeine will do that.
Yeah,
the beta alanine. I find when it's the beta alanine, it's like the worst because then you're like tingling as well.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, are my ears red? I feel like my ears are red. Do you have a sour for the week, Sunny?
Yeah, my best friend took my laptop charger.
Oh yeah.
No, I'll just go buy a new one. But my sour, yeah, there was a lot of sours, but I always try and not like focus on them. I'd say the sour, it was very specific, was that I didn't go into the show thinking I was going to win, but then I ended up in prejudging in the first one. So I had all this like excitement, and I was just like, oh my goodness, what just happened? This is a dream. I can't believe this. So then like the hour or the 3 hours between prejudging and finals, where I was just like, what? Like thinking. I think that was kind of like the bitter, because it was like, I feel like if I never was put into that first place spot, then I never would have I would have just been like, whatever, I'm still happy. But I think they just gave me a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
So the word was bitter for sure. But I'm not like bitter, but it was bitter.
Mine was, I was going to say my power going out. I'm going to go with my power going out. That stressed me out. I did have a little bit of a teary just because I was like, I don't have the energy to deal with this right now.
Like, no, it's not happening.
Yeah. Something you learned, Courtney?
Something I've learned, I'm digging into the Huberman podcast. I don't know if either of you listen to it. I love listening to him, but it's that same thing that Dazz had said, where it's just like, I'm impatient for 2 hours or like 3 hours. And I'm like, oh, can you just like fast forward all of the information? But I am learning into it a little bit more so because one of my clients he's listening into it and he's talking about the mental health toolbox. So I'm learning because of one of my clients, which I think is such a great thing.
Oh, nice.
So that's my learn.
Yeah. Sunny, did you learn anything?
Sunny?
Yeah,
I did not reply to people on social media who were shitty.
Yes, I did learn that. I mean, I've learned that lesson time and time again. But no, I think that, I mean, I'm working with this neurologist. She's extremely knowledgeable, probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. So every time I even am in his presence, I learn something new. And this other female neurologist. But I'd say that yesterday, I wrote about it on my Instagram. I always am asking him just little questions about brain health and aging and stuff. And yesterday, the thing I learned that I thought was super interesting was that emotional stress, and he literally just called it drama, ages your brain, and not only ages it, but actually causes the prefrontal cortex to atrophy and shrink, so that your inhibitions, your behavior, your emotional responses become kind of muted and blunted as you get older. Almost in a way, it seems like to protect yourself. So, which makes sense, right? If you're someone who's constantly exposed to stress and drama, fight or flight, your body shuts, your brain will shut down. So, you're thinking, wow, you can really protect yourself, your personality, if you remove yourself from those situations. And stress is bad. That's obvious. But like to hear someone who's a neuroscientist explain to you why and like how the dendrites die and they don't want to have those synapses so that you're not constantly causing yourself pain. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So that's my life.
It just like connects at a different level.
Yeah, exactly.
There's actually a podcast on the Huberman with a neurologist, and he talks about obesity, and they're doing a trial of where they're going to like, I don't want to butcher this, but they're going to like rewire the brains in people who have been obese. They've tried a weight loss drug and haven't been successful with it. And then you go into this trial and you get things changed in your brain and then see whether or not it cures obesity.
Very cool.
Yeah. So like food addiction.
Interesting.
Yeah. You can listen to that one next.
Yeah.
Something I learned, Courtney, do you remember how we were talking about how I was really into crime, like true crime movies? Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And you said there was like a thing about females being into that. So I learned what it was. And it's a protective mechanism because in most cases, women are going to be most vulnerable to like serial killers and things like that because most of the time they're men and they're seeking women. So when women read about that stuff or they read fictional or non-fiction stories about it, they get really into it because then they feel like they've got the one up. Like they understand how that brain
it's like
works.
learning, right?
Yeah.
So I know the code for it or something.
Yeah, so it's like a protective mechanism, which I thought was pretty funny.
I love that. Did any of you, I'm going to like totally cut off. Did any of you do like self-defense courses or classes when you were like younger or anything? And it's like you learn something and it's like you're learning something from the teacher. It's like, okay, well, if he grabs you here, then you're just going to like flip him over and do all of that. But like in a real life scenario, be like, wait, hold on. Put your arm there. Like, can you move it around? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like in theory that it works, but like when you're actually in the heat of it, it's like, I can't do it.
Put your hands around my neck so that I can.
Yeah, wait, get into this position a little bit later.
I didn't learn this one. I
went to Michigan State and they had this guy that would go around to different sororities or even like Greek systems and give like a talk and have volunteers come up. And I guess after he gave the lecture at Michigan State, they like couldn't find his name and couldn't find his website, and they ended up finding out that this guy was just a scam. I mean, his intentions were good. I mean, yes, he did grapple with like, young females, like putting them in and tackling them and stuff. But like they ended up finding out that this guy would just go around to universities pretending he had some type of qualifications and get off on like giving a speech to 300, 500 females. So that was like my only experience with self-defense.
Yeah, so these are the girls that need to read about true crime so that they're on top of this stuff and they can see the warning signs.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to get into the episode?
Yes, let's dig in.
All right, so this is Femme Radio. I'm Dazz.
And I'm Court, and we are redefining health. So before we dive into this amazing episode with Sunny, please like and subscribe and leave us a 5-star review.
All right, so Sunny, do you want to start off by introducing yourself? I know a brief bit about you, but I mainly know you from like a competitive side of things. And then I think we were staying in the same hotel in Vegas last year. And when you were leaving, I was entering and you're like, oh, hi. And I was like, oh my God, Sunny's talking to me. Let me get to my room so I don't panic. But I also know that you're a doctor. So expand on who you are and what you do and what you're doing at work today, maybe even.
Okay, cool. So, hi guys, I'm so honored to be here. I love what you're doing with this podcast, and I think it's so important that you are shining the light on health in an industry that's supposed to be revolved around health and fitness. So, I really appreciate and value what you guys are doing, and when you guys asked me to be on, I was so thrilled. My real name is Sonia Andrio, and I'm a medical doctor, and I am specializing in physical medicine and rehabilitation. My goal is to be an interventional pain doctor, so that I can do some small invasive procedures to alleviate people with pain. There's some surgical procedures, but they're a lot less invasive than the orthopedic procedures. I did my first 2 years in general surgery training, and then found that it wasn't really right for me with the lifestyle. Just there was a lot of things that didn't coincide with kind of who I was, and the PMNR, physical medicine subspecialty, is very has a lot of athletes actually in my program, and they're very supportive of my bodybuilding career, hobby, endeavors, whatever you want to call it. And it's so cool to be around other like-minded physicians. So I was really happy that I made that change. I moved down to Miami in the end of June, and just the whole environment here has been really conducive to what I want to do with medicine, where I combine like fitness and medicine, and instead of having them be totally opposing. So that's been cool. And then you said what I'm going to do at work today. So right now I'm on a neurology rotation, and it's kind of cool because I get to do inpatient neurology, outpatient neurology at this place called the Design Neuroscience Center, which has like patients, really interesting cases of people come from all over the world to come see this one doctor I work with, who I'm learning from, and he's phenomenal, world renowned, spends like 1 to 2 hours with each patient because they're so complicated. I'm not going to clinic today. Today I'm going to inpatient. So inpatient, I'll see a patient, do a physical exam, see what they consulted neurology for, see if we need to add any medications, see what medications are on, see if we need to take anyone off, and then write their notes, sign their orders, order their labs, order their imaging if they need any of that. And then sometimes for neurology, we use things like Botox if someone has a dystonia, so we can do small injections like that. Nerve blocks, Botox, and trigger point injections. Those are all things we can do in neurology. So that's specifically what I'm doing for just until January. Sorry, that was a mouthful.
No, I actually envy your day because I love learning above all else. Like, and I find myself on TikTok a lot, but when anyone's talking about anything sort of neurology or like psychiatric behavior related, I'm like, okay, I'll watch this one. I'll watch this, and like I save it and I save it and I save it because I don't know. I don't know whether or not I feel like I'm learning more about myself, but I also feel like being a coach, like learning about, human behaviors and like even sort of like their relationship towards pain. Like how many times have we had a client that's had a back injury and then is afraid to get back to the gym kind of thing. And I think that learning how people's self-beliefs and kind of like learning how to break through that is a huge part of coaching. Like I really think coaching's more about understanding the individual and working with their personality more than what it is giving them a training plan and a nutrition plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it like for you growing up? Did you play any sports or any? I know you're into wakeboarding. Snowboarding. Snowboarding or wakeboarding, is it the same thing?
I love wakeboarding. I love snowboarding. Growing up, I was obsessed with sports. I played everything, but I was really good, like abnormally good at track and field and soccer. You could say that I had some degree of like childhood obsessiveness, because starting in second grade, when I decided that I wanted to be the best in the sports I was playing, I would wake up before school, before my parents were awake, and they would drive them nuts. I would go outside and like lock the door from the outside, so like I wasn't leaving I was in second grade, and then I'd go do sprints in the park, time myself, do laps, do push-ups. Like I was like a psycho second grader, and I did that all throughout grade school. I had a coach that was a really huge part of my life in soccer. Oh my gosh, I mean, I love my parents, and they really were very attentive. But he had a huge impact, I'd say, on me because of the life lessons he taught about just resilience and pushing through. And I mean, yeah, he was a great soccer coach, but the life lessons, I think about them daily. There'll be times like I'm trying to like finish a note at work kind of fast. And then like, I would remember him like telling me we have to go run 10 more laps if you cut a corner. So I'm like, no. Like,
That's so powerful.
Totally. Yeah. Everything's ingrained in my head because of this guy. So it was, I mean, and my parents, but like, he was really, really impactful. So growing up, yeah, I was the tomboy for sure. My favorite thing was to kick boys' butts in sports.
Same. I've got two brothers. I've got an older one and a younger one. And my mum was always like, you should have been the boy. I remember for my dad's 50th birthday, everyone was getting ready and they're all getting dressed up and stuff. And I just chucked on my brother's t-shirt and then I snuck out into the backyard and jumped on the motorcycle. I would have been like 8 or 10 at the time.
Oh
and
my
I
God.
crashed into a tree and I couldn't get the motorcycle off me. And I had to wait for everyone to be ready to leave and start packing the car. I'd be like, where's Darian? And then they came looking for me in the paddock. And we ended up spending Dad's 50th in hospital.
Oh my gosh. What did you injure?
So it was on a Pee Wee 50. And on the Pee Wee 50, the motor's on the outside.
Yeah.
So the bike like rolled onto my right. And then the motor was burning my ankle and I was too small to take the bike off myself.
Oh my God. Ow, you poor thing.
Oh my God.
But-
Sunny, what inspired you, or what, if you can remember, like what really encouraged you when you were like in second grade to be like, I just want to be the best at everything? Like for me, I didn't even have a concept of like what sports were until I was like 16.
So I think when I was a kid, I mean, and it's not anything that's actually very glamorous. I had a lot of anxiety. I was really, really angry. So I couldn't figure skate. I could run because you can do that until your heart, a thumbs up.
Yeah, no, every time you do that, it'll pop out.
I could run because I could do it as like, I could put my heart soul into it and do it until I like legitimately would faint. So it was like kind of weird. And then like I would play soccer because you could put your whole heart and soul into it. But like I was okay at figure skating, but you couldn't go and like perform as a figure skater where you're just putting 100% physical effort into it. You have to have, if you have anxiety, you have to learn how to like, just like the bodybuilding stage. If you're going to go pose stage, you have to know how to channel. And I was not good at posing at first because of the same reason. I would get so nervous. I looked like an awkward robot. So for figure skating, I stopped because I would just like freak out and get so nervous and all that kind of stuff. So I think that for me, the way for me to channel my anxiety, and I'm saying this as if this was something for the past, the way for me to mitigate any type of anxiety in my life is to do something that's going to work towards like whatever. If I'm nervous about a test, I'm just going to go study. You know what I mean? Like if I'm nervous about not being like conditioned enough, then I'm going to like remind myself, okay, you followed your diet and you did your cardio. Like now I can do that. As a kid, I'd be like, I'm going to sprint at 4 a.m. But like it was just a way for me to deal with my anxiety. And I didn't have any, my parents are, they're not doctors. So they just were like, she's a little bit different. we're gonna let her do her thing. Like we're not gonna put her on medication. Like I didn't need medication. It wasn't that bad. But they're like, all right.
I can imagine your parents being like, did you clean your room? And no, but I did 100 sit-ups.
No, I was like,
I was the same, like, because I hate posing. But posing made me realize how stiff and how much tension I hold in my body just naturally. I remember my posing coach being like, relax your arm. And I'm like, it is relaxed. And she's like, no, like shake it. And I'm like, it's relaxed.
It's crazy. I've creeped on your profile, obviously. And I noticed like you get really lean, really dry, great insertions, and you have like, I know that in the fitness world, people say the word tone doesn't mean anything, but in the medical world, it does. I think that like if you have more tone in your muscles, which means they're not completely relaxed. Of course you're going to have more difficulty posing. And I feel I have the same problem. I do have increased tone and stiffness. So working on flex, and that was one of many things that I worked on with my new coach. He gave me, it was cool. Never had a coach do this. He had me stand and send him pictures relaxed in like 20 different poses. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what he's going to do with this. Then he looked at my posture, looked at my hips, looked at everything, and then wrote me a stretching protocol. And then and it was so detailed. He said, you either do this in the morning, and these are the amounts of times you hold each pose in the morning, or you do it pre-training, and this is the different amounts of times you hold each thing, or you do it before night, and it's still different than the other 2 times of the day. So I'm just like, what the, like, this is amazing. I've never had no one even tell me to stretch. Maybe like they say stretch, but to write me the most detailed stretching protocol, it was a game changer. I've never been on stage. Like, usually I'm like, we're like.
Yeah, you're making me want to sneak into Ray Millett's DMs.
Yeah.
Girl, I'm like, I'm his number one fan.
When you guys go get a massage, and like, say if he's like, or he or she is at your glute, and they're like, relax your glute, and it's like, oh, I thought it was like,
Yeah,
this is real relaxed, this is the guess.
Yeah, this is me soft. Yeah.
So you started off in WBFF. What kind of was your transition to go into IFBB? Was it just the introduction of wellness, or were you more attracted to IFBB?
So that's a good question. I'll start with the more politically safe, I'd say, answer. That is yes, they introduced wellness, and of course, I saw all of the big superstars, in our fitness world, that were like gonna jump ship and do wellness, because it's like, of course, it was the coolest thing ever to have this Brazilian category. And who doesn't want to have big legs, big glutes? And my whole life, I've been trying to shrink my legs and glutes because I played soccer, ran track, and that's just my genetics. So I was like, this will be perfect for me. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And then another reason I did was the WBFF. I'm sure everyone has seen this online. They have their own political issues that I really just couldn't get past. And I felt uncomfortable representing a federation that so overtly disrespected their competitors. And I was like, it's a poor reflection on me. And what really just kind of signed me off was I competed against someone, a competitor who's like really famous in Brazil, who had like documented her glute implant journey. And it wasn't like she said, oh, look, I grew my glutes and they're big, and okay, yeah, they may look like I had implants. She was like gowned on, cap on, this is where I'm going, what I'm doing, like 2 or 3 years before the competition. And then I competed against her and she won. And then I'm like, that's like, it just a slap in the face. So after that happened, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's kind of just odd. So that would be the less political reason, but less politically correct reason. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think
sorry, you go.
Sorry. With the, especially like with the WBFF recently, like them bringing up a lot of stuff, I really admire, and like everybody has their own opinions and stuff like that. I'm like, I get it. But just seeing a lot of almost like the leaders or the like team coaches and stuff that are transitioning, and they've recently started like their own federation. I can't remember the initials of it, but they're basically just taking a lot of the structure of the WBFF, like the good things about it, and they're making it better. And just, I really admire that so many people have been speaking up about the WBFF and just basically all the fuckery that has been happening. And like, I didn't know about that. And then they start showing it and you're like, what the fuck? Like, is that even like allowed? So just I admire that you did see the conflict in that.
And it absolutely, I had fun competing. And I mean, I've had fun competing probably almost every time I've been on stage in my bodybuilding stint. But like, I think that at the end of it, you want to get back. You're not going to get back 100% of what you put into everything, but you want to get back something. And I felt like I was going and giving my all. You dedicate so much time, and then it's like, you really weren't getting much back. But with the IFBB, right, I go and I did this show last minute, whatever. What I got back from it has been exponential compared to what I put in. And that I'm so grateful for. And like that I wanted to do this show and go do it for fun. That was really what my goal was in Fort Lauderdale. But I ended up getting a new supplement sponsor. I'm working as a consultant with a new medical company. And those two, and now I know that I kind of have the green light to continue competing and working on my physique. If I got last, probably would have been like, oh, they think I should not compete anymore. So like those three things to me were like, oh my gosh, this was the best decision to compete. And I'm really happy to do that. And I got to see so many people that I love to see.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to like emphasize, because a lot of people want to step on stage for the sake of like having this incredible body on stage and being in a bikini and that. And I'm like, but if you're not like clear on why you're doing that, you're spending a bunch of money for no reason. Like honestly, because
it's expensive.
The suits aren't cheap, the heels aren't cheap, the tan isn't cheap, the makeup's not cheap, the memberships aren't cheap. Like it's not, nothing about this is cheap. And if you're just wanting to look good and feel confident in yourself, you're better off just getting a photo shoot.
I will say, I say this to my clients, you getting on stage is not going to help you feel more confident. Especially at a pro level. If you feel before stage, the day before the stage, I was feeling myself. I felt like the best I've ever felt. Getting on stage, okay, the judges are kind. The judges aren't going to shake you. Your placing you can handle. The thing that really you need to make sure that your confidence is A1 is the trolls online. Like after a show, I stay off, because you know that, I mean, I know at this point, no matter what how happy I am with myself, that there's going to be some person somewhere that's like, I'm going to feel so good if I see something.
I love that comment that you put on the Wellness Observer's post.
I was on one, so I'm not sure much comment.
I love it.
I've had it. I've sat back, and everyone's like, no, just let the trolls be trolls and don't say anything. And I'm like, I did that. I did that. And not only did I do that, I kept my mouth shut. I let YouTube people call me a fake doctor, fake glutes, fake this, fake that. And I didn't say anything. And now a year and a half later, those rumors are still circulating. So I was like, no, I've had enough. Like, screw them.
Yeah, that's what I kind of, there was a Reddit forum about me once when I started talking openly about female PED use and sort of like taking a safer approach to it and mitigating risk. And then someone started a Reddit forum about me saying that I had an enhanced jawline and I had changed and whatnot. And I was just like, one of my clients was like, just leave it, like just ignore it, because she was the one that sent it to me. And I was like, no, because I don't have anyone else to stick up for me. No one's going to do that. Like I want to stick up for myself. So then I know that I've had that level of respect for myself to be able to say, that's not right, you're wrong. Shut up.
I love that. Yeah.
And it's not even just like sticking up for yourself. Like, yes, absolutely. But it's also like setting a standard and setting a tone for other people, for like maybe other women who can't speak up or don't feel comfortable. It's like, no, you need to like tell someone to sit down if they're not in their place to do so.
Yeah. And people
I think that's really important.
People need to be so much more careful on social media, because TikTok's much worse. Like TikTok's more brutal than Instagram. You didn't think
have one. I can only handle so much. I'm like,
it's a minefield in there.
Yeah, but I'm not that brave. I'm like, I'm not going on TikTok.
I tell people all the time, because like I'll get comments like that I look like a man or something like that when I'm talking, and I just message back and I'll be like, I hope that made you feel better putting that comment on my post, because you have and I hope it made your day or whatnot, and I hope that it was worth it. But be careful who you're commenting on, because you never know what mental state someone's in.
Absolutely.
You don't know. That comment could just be that tipping point that sends them over the edge.
There's been so much, and I know what I felt and the hate that I received after like some YouTube guys made videos on me. I knew how I felt like, and it was bad. And I thank God, like I don't suffer from depression. So I was like, I'm really lucky. I have a good support system. And I've been bullied before. So like this is not new to me. So I kind of knew how to handle it. But when I see other people, I don't know if you guys followed the whole Ben Weeder natural competitor drama, and whether or not
We had a question about that.
someone is in the right or the wrong, I'm not the judge of the world. So like for all these people to jump on and harass someone, they could simply say something like, that's not right. But they don't know her to attack her character and all that kind of stuff. Okay, they think like they don't know who helped her make that decision. They don't know anything. So like for me, I was like, I don't know this girl. I don't know her support system. Like whether I agree or disagree with what's happening is really like, who am I? I don't know her. Like I'm not this freaking like sitting on some high horse where I get to judge every single person that's making a decision. Like the people on the internet were bullying her so hard. I was like, I just feel really bad for her. And not just her specifically, for anyone that is getting torn down by the internet. And like, I think they think like there's power in numbers. They're like, if we all up on someone and make them feel like bad enough about themselves, we can make something happen. And I'm like, yeah, that seems to be the case lately.
It drives me nuts that people can't have the intelligence to come up with content other than bullying or bringing down others.
Right.
That drives me insane. Anyway, moving on from that.
Anyway, we digress.
One thing that I really wanted to speak to you about was kind of like the misconceptions around what defines wellness. I think I said to you that I get a lot of women, and I'm sure Courtney, you do too, that are in their off season and all of a sudden they think that they fit the wellness criteria. And I'm like, no, you're bikini. You are not, you do not have enough muscle density to be wellness. And then they're like, I don't care how long it takes. Like, I'm going to build up to wellness. And I'm like, you can't. It's so genetically predisposition. Like, it's such a genetically reliant category that you have to just have that lower body dominance to be able to fit wellness. If you're going to just try and grow into wellness, A, you're probably going to experience a lot of virilization in the process, or B, your upper body's just going to grow at the same rate, and then your physique will figure.
Yeah.
So I almost exclusively, I have one natural bikini competitor, but that was because she was going to do wellness and we switched her. But besides that, my entire roster is all only lifestyle or wellness competitors. And I couldn't agree with you more. What I do think is you're right. Genetic predisposition to growing into wellness. Yeah. This bodybuilding is such a unique sport. You wouldn't go and run a race and get dead last at a local park. I'm not talking regionals. I'm not talking high school. Just like literally be the worst at something, and then say, "Oh yeah, I want to get on the Olympia stage," or "I want to be like Usain Bolt, and I want to win the 100-meter dash." You wouldn't, because that would be really dumb. But in bodybuilding, people with, and I'm not giving anyone any like hits, but if someone has, 15-inch quad and they're like, I want to be Miss Olympia, I'm like, it's not impossible it's not impossible, but you're setting yourself up for a lot of difficulty. One thing I will say, so I started bodybuilding when I was 95 pounds. However, and my legs are small, I did not look like wellness. However, I knew that I was underfed and I wasn't training. I knew that when I did exercise really hard and that I did eat, that my genetically, even if I wasn't training, my legs would be big. So what I think is important is that people know if they have a propensity to put on muscle and where they put it on. Mm-hmm. Exactly what you said, Tiffany. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Tiffany. I was thinking Darren, yeah. Yeah, I feel like you coached her at one point, and like my brain is
for a very brief period, and then
yeah. Sorry. All right, so actually, I'll tell you how I got there in my head, in a minute. But that was when I was talking. I like got on this weird loop, but I'll leave that alone for a second. Anyways, yeah, like you said, if you have the ability to grow muscle, you're not going to know until you do it.
Yes.
So like you have to start training and see how you start putting on size. because sometimes people are lucky and they really do have the ability to be wellness, even if they're small. But it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna take time. I've been lifting weights religiously and weighing my food for 10 years.
Yeah.
And before I started, I did not start at a place. I mean, yeah, I was 95 pounds, but like I was ripped and shredded. Like, so it was really easy for me to see gains. Everyone's different and where they start, but I do think it's really hard to work against someone's genetics, and I don't know why people are doing that to themselves. Bikini's so big now too. Like,
and I think there's such a stigma around people not wanting to do bikini because they think that bikini doesn't have much muscle mass. And I'm like, no, you're really underestimating the amount of muscle mass that they have. But fine, if you don't like the bikini criteria, you're not fitted for wellness. You're not going to do well in wellness. So just create a physique that you like and then celebrate that.
And don't compete.
Photo shoots. Don't step on stage.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is like, when you get into bodybuilding and you start competing, it's like you don't build a body that you want. You build a body that the judges want to see based on a certain criteria. So for me, like I'm in bikini, I'm trying to build weight and gain size and stuff. I would rather, like if I had my ideal look, I would rather be smaller than what I am and be more conditioned. But bikini, we have to be bigger, we have to be fuller. And I'm trying to fit into their standards. And I think this is similar to wellness, is like you have to fit into their standards, but then there's also the understanding that, and please Sunny, tell me if I'm wrong, but like you have, like when you're a wellness competitor, or I'd say anything other than a bikini competitor, you have to like how you look bigger than actually looking how you look on stage. Right? Does that make sense? So like your off season, you have to gain weight, you have to be bigger. So it's not just the stage weight or the stage look that you want. You have to be comfortable like 11 months out of the year being not that look in order to get that look.
Absolutely. You said it perfectly. Absolutely. And I think I have some, specifically my clients, and I'm not going to try and call them out. Good, really, really impressive. A girl who just went pro, incredible genetics. She honestly, her prep was the easiest prep ever. She stays lean all year long, but I think to be a competitive pro, she's going to have to do a serious build. And she is so used to walking around looking stage lean, having the most crisp, beautiful tie-ins, that she's apprehensive to do that. And for wellness, it's an absolute must. And I have another pro client who she's needs to grow just such a small bit. And we've kind of been going back and forth, do you really need to grow because of the new criteria? Or she's or can I just go continue? The frame is most aesthetic frame, 100% genetics for wellness, insane. Her body probably in the pro league is the most similar frame to Francielle. But she doesn't want to grow her legs because she's just why am I going to put my body through all that if I'm just right there, I mean, she does want to grow her legs, but she doesn't need to put on a lot of size. And I think it's just really finding a balance between aesthetics and size for wellness. But a lot of people can't achieve that aesthetic without the size because of their frame. So it depends on the person. Client A I have here with the most beautiful shape and frame, she's not going to have to pack on as much muscle because she's already has these hips, this waist, whatever. And that's how she was born, so she's lucky. But then the other person, honestly, me, I'm kind of straight up and down, but my muscle is what gives me my shape. So my 10 years is that's what I had to do to be a wellness shape for sure.
Yeah.
Are a lot of the wellness competitors shorter? How tall are you, Sunny?
Oh yeah. So Issa and Fran are Issa's shorter than me, and Fran and I are the same height. She's 5'1". But I'd say that the majority of wellness competitors are class A. I'm 5'1". Yeah. It makes it. I mean, it's an advantage. It's just think about how many 12 guys have gone into open.
Have
you look beefier when you're short.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch James Gordon's talk show when he was on?
He sounds familiar, but I don't think I watched it.
He's a comedian, but he had a talk show. Yeah, and he had celebrities on, and he had oh, what's his name? Short a short comedian. He's black. Kevin Hart. He had Kevin Hart on, and he does this skit where it's called "Fill Your Guts or Spill Your Guts." So you have to answer a question honestly, otherwise you have to eat this really disgusting thing. And so the question was to Kevin Hart, how much did you make from Jumanji? Is it Jumanji? And then he was like, but before he asked the question, he was like, "Are you ready for the question?" And Kevin Hart's like, 5'1". I said it, 5'1".
That's all I am.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I'm 5'5".
I'm like 5'6.5", so I'm a little bit taller.
And I think that like choosing between, if someone's like on the cusp thinking bikini or wellness and they're a little bit taller, I'm like, one of the taller competitors' feedbacks is almost always you need more muscle to fill out your frame. They love telling tall girls, anyone literally, anyone over 5'4", that it's because you have such long muscle bellies on your femur. Your quads are so long. To get that outer sweep takes a long time.
You have to build a lot.
Yeah.
You have to build a lot. And I have been trained, and I thought I trained hard. I have been training my ass off, like to grow my legs, doing everything that's physically possible. I promise there's not like, I physically could not have put any more effort into growing my legs these past 10 years. I know, like, there's not anything else I could have done. And this is the amount of growth that I've had. I used the first 5 years I lifted, I only trained glutes. And that's because I didn't know I was going to compete and because I didn't know how to train. And I regret it deeply now, because now I need to balance my body more. But growing your legs, man, it's hard. Yeah. It is growing your quads. Yeah. It's hard. And I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. I'm not telling any bodybuilders anything they don't know. But it is painful. And you cannot skip any corners if you want your quads to grow.
Yeah. I'm still trying to grow into bikini. Like, I can't even imagine like wellness. Like, I admire it so much. And I'm like, I want that. But I'm still like way down here.
Can you see the 50-kilo puppy behind me in this crate?
Oh,
yeah. So that's super fun after a leg session when he walks on your quads. Like that's ooh. The amount of times I yell at him, I'm like, Stitch, get off my legs.
So cute.
One question that I had from you was with the recent Wellness Olympia that came up. What were your thoughts on the placings? I've given my thoughts. I definitely think Fran and Issa were in the top 2, but I think Issa had it this year. And from my perspective, I just feel like maybe there was a little bit of hesitation from the judges to reward something different because wellness is so new.
That's a good way. That's a really, really well said and really good way to put it, I think. You can't really argue with that fact. Mostly because Tyler hasn't done his video yet. So we don't know exactly, all of the reasoning. I'd say being there in person, and then after I analyze the photos on my own, because I'm in love with the sport. I'd say that Issa was absolutely impressive. I definitely think there was aspects to her physique that are so unique and actually surpass Fran. But what I think Fran has that Issa didn't have, like if you look at a side-by-side of their side pose specifically, Fran's glute is really round. Issa's is not. She has a different shape to her glute that just doesn't make it as her glute grew, but she doesn't have roundness to her. Fran's is like a perfect circle. Issa's is not. It's
like hard.
It looks a little bit different. So like when it's that close, I feel like they do take into consideration actual size and shape, not just size, but actual shape of muscles, because that's genetics. Like the way that Fran's like hips and waist are, like Issa has an incredibly small, freaky waist, but they're just the little tiny differences that make something, more aesthetic. That comes into play when they're looking at top 1, top 2 at Olympia. And I think it was just kind of like, it comes down to that. So seeing it in person, it was really close. really, really close.
Yeah,
But,
it could have been a flip of a coin kind of thing.
it's that, like, if Fran's legs were a tad bigger, like, I think it would have been pretty much like, in my opinion, I mean, I guess that's what they want, but I think that she didn't have, her glutes were bigger than her legs. And if they're going to be consistent with all competitors across the board with that, then I think that Fran's legs should have been a little bit bigger to match her glutes.
Yeah.
But Issa's glutes are still a little bit smaller than her legs, but she did bring them up. So I think Issa had more balance than Fran. But I mean, if you insult Fran, you're going to get attacked. So I'm not really insulting anyone here. I'm just saying what I saw.
Disclaimer.
Do you want to avoid that conversation of what I guess what people's opinions are of the most recent show that you did? We don't have to go into that conversation if you don't want to. I can give my opinion if you want me to just give my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything controversial. I feel like I already have, and I like it.
Yeah.
You've said your piece.
If I said anything too controversial, we can just cut it out.
Yeah, well, that's why, like, I haven't said anything online. I think because obviously I used to coach Tiff. I think people might think that I'm only doing it out of spite, which isn't true. Like, if I think that Tiff, yeah, I think if Tiff was meant to place first, good on her. Like, I couldn't be happier for her, but I didn't feel like she deserved that first placing at the show.
I will say I can say some things, but like we were pretty reserved about it. And if we don't like it, you don't have to use it.
We can use different names. Like if you want to say Tiff, you can say T.
Oh, I have an idea. Okay, what if we do this? Don't say anything about the most recent show, but say, are we going to talk about, be like, what are some things that you've seen in wellness, like detrimental effects of PED use? Okay. And I'm going to talk about how I've seen people who have come up too quickly have an android fat distribution where they may be shredded in their lower body, but men hold fat in their waist. And high cortisol competing too many times in 1 year and having too much male hormones for too long causes fat to lie on your abdomen and causes a thick waist with a shredded lower body. Yeah.
I know of this one particular wellness competitor who's, before I spoke with her, coach had her on aromatase inhibitors.
Uh-huh.
What happens when you get rid of all estrogen in the female's body? She's going to store belly fat. That's estrogen. That estrogen gets rid of that. Like, that's one of estrogen's role, is to limit fat accumulation around the stomach. So if you are relying on aromatase inhibitors to shut down estrogen to get leaner, you are going to hold more body fat around your stomach. Why in the world would this coach have her on that even in an off season? I am not sure.
So, I mean, one of the reasons I started following you initially, I found someone you were coaching, and then I just saw your video, and I'm like, a smart, educated, knowledgeable female freaking coach. Hell yeah. And I got so stoked. And since I found you, I'm like, that was just something that really drew me to you, was the fact that you're science-based, that you were open to talk about things that other people were shy to talk about. And I don't think people are necessarily shy to talk about PEDs. What I think that they're scared to talk about is PEDs in general because of their lack of knowledge. They're like, I'm just not going to say anything and act like I'm like too cool to talk. But it's because they have no backing they don't have any understanding.
Yeah.
So when we were just talking and I was like, said that person's name, it was because I was thinking about fat distribution. I was thinking about that's where that came from. Anyway.
Yeah. Hey, I totally agree with you, and with what you said about people not wanting to speak about it. I don't know many competitors, like female competitors, that if they told me what their coach had given them, and if I asked you why are you using that, they would be able to tell me.
I don't think so either. I don't think that their coach knows. I don't think they know. And between you and I don't know whoever else watches this podcast, if this part will stay in, I have
definitely staying in.
I have really been really, really, really been trying to figure out a way, and that's why I buy partners with this rejuvenating medicine medical practice as a consultant this past week, because I want to bring light to the fact that there's so many detrimental things being done to competitors without their knowledge. And I want to bring light to it because I know these girls, I know their protocols.
Yeah.
People that come, other pros that come to me, just people who are my friends. Literally, I have so many wellness competitors that I'm just friends with. Who are like, hey, my coach told me to take this and this and this. What do you think? People in my DMs, from other coaches, it's crazy. Just sending me their protocol, being like, hey, I don't know who else to go to. I'm your doctor. Can you please tell me if it's okay for me to take this and this? I'm like, it's just insane. I mean, also, this is another crazy thing. I'm working out here at Elevation Fitness in Miami, and I have like I'm not kidding you, like top male pros come up to me who don't get blood work done and will legitimately be like, hey, I haven't gotten blood work this year. What should I get drawn? Or I've been taking this for this many months. Like, do you think this is okay? Like, and these are guys that huge followings, people that you would think are on top of their game, on top of health, I mean.
Because they have the resources available to them, but they
don't need to think for themselves. They just trust.
I'm like, your heart is about to explode. I'm like, what? Why have you not gotten blood work done in 2 years? Like, it makes me really, like, it's irresponsible. But like, I think it's not necessarily just irresponsible. I think it's that there's such an emphasis on looking freaky and, being the best, that people really disregard the fact that they're destroying themselves from the inside. And it makes me so sad because, like, it doesn't have to be.
And it's because they can't see what's happening on the inside, right? So they're like, oh, but I'm seeing the results on the outside. This is one thing that I really love about, like, when Dazz reached out to me and wanted to do this podcast, because I don't know a lot about PEDs. Like, I know the very basic, like super, super basics, just because of, like, I'm in this sport, but just learning about it. So being able to bring more awareness and bring more conversation around it, I think it's really exciting.
I agree.
I think too, what you said there, Cord, about like people not being concerned with sort of the internal warning signs and stuff. Like I always tell women, this is going a little bit off track, but look at your menstrual cycle like the warning sign on your car dashboard. If that sign's on, something needs to get checked. Like if it's not functioning properly, go get it checked. But so many women, when their concerns around PED use are acne, unwanted hair growth, like they're usually the two top ones. And I'm like, what about your reproductive cycle? Like, do you not care about that? No, not really. I just care about my acne and hair growth or losing my hair or whatnot.
But yeah, but that's still part of being a human. Okay. Like whether we want to like bleed every month or not, like it's still part of like a healthy body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Premature ovarian failure, osteoporosis. These are things that they seem
organ failure. Yeah.
They seem like they're so far away, but in a hop, skip, and a jump, you're going to be 50 years old. I mean, I don't care if these people, if they're like, it's a 20-year-old competitor thinking that that's a lifetime away from you. Like you can damage your reproductive organs very easily if you have extended time on PEDs. And then what ends up happening, like you're going to need hormone replacement your whole life. Are you going to be infertile? Are those things that you really want to make a decision about when you're like a sophomore in undergrad? Like it's just like mind blowing.
And then when they you sparked my mind there on something and now I can't remember. Crap. Oh, sorry. The whole estrogen talk, and because they hear about how estrogen dominance causes like fat accumulation and makes it really hard for women to lose weight and that. And I'm like, yes, estrogen dominance does that, but not having any estrogen in your system at all, or like shutting it down completely, is so much worse. Like so much worse for your overall health, your physique, how you feel, how you perform from day to day. It's terrible. Anyway.
That's the reason why people that have menopause have, estrogen supplementation. A lack of estrogen causes cognitive decline. you're going to have all of the symptoms of menopause, but really,
anxiety, stress. Yeah.
So you don't want to feel like that. You don't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
Oh, this I'm getting the morning.
Oh yeah, the sun. That hallelujah. I definitely think like that this podcast could go on forever. But I even wonder if like this would be something that maybe we should bring to Instagram lives and do it like a specific topic on what is proper risk management for female PED users and stuff. And but yeah, and I agree with you. And what you were saying about people new to the sport abusing drugs to come up too quickly. It's like it's not really that hard to go and look at certain coaches' profiles and look at what those women look like now.
Yeah.
And that's scary. Oh, and that's the other thing I was going to say too. The problem is that one of the issues with PED use is that it ends up being a little bit of Chinese whispers. So like that female now becomes a coach. And what do you think she's giving her clients? Exactly what her coach gave her.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit.
Okay.
I think we should jump into some questions.
Yeah, we'll run
Like some
into
more
the
like
questions
rapid fire.
I've got so much I want to talk to you about, but I'll go on forever. So we'll just go into the questions from Instagram, and then I'll just message you every day, Sonny.
Okay. So one question that we had, and it was something that Dazz and I wanted to ask you about, but also we got from one of our fans as well. How do you like balance your professional life with competing? So for example, like the person that asked this question, she is a shift worker and a nurse as well. So coping kind of like with your residency or being on a call, being so close to a show, how do you work through like sleep deprivation and like checking off the necessary boxes?
Oh, that's a great question and probably one of my favorite ones to answer. So for my prep, I'll do this prep. Would wake up early. Well, one thing I'll say, sleep deprivation after I got out of general surgery. So I could not be a person that was going to function on 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep the rest of my life, or even throughout the 5 years of gen surg residency. I decided that that's not what I wanted for myself. So I will have a minimum of 6 hours of sleep, and I won't go below that no matter what. If I have to like not respond to a client, if I need to skip cardio or something, sleep, I always will prioritize. If I get 6 hours, I'll make sure that I sleep. I'm like very religious about my sleep. I protect it with everything. If I only get 6 hours through the night, I'll try and get a nap later. Obviously, that's not always possible. But first of all, I always protect my sleep. That's when we heal. That's when we recover. That's when we grow. Mm-hmm. If you're sleeping like 4 hours a night and training and eating perfectly, you're not going to get the result of someone who's sleeping 8 hours. That's just cut and dry. So I protect my sleep. What I do though, I go to bed early, wake up early, do my cardio before work. If I have to be at work at the crack of dawn, unlike today, which is great, I don't have to go into mine. Then I will do my cardio before work. If I can't get it in before work, I'm flexible. I'll just do it when I have an empty stomach after work. I train after I get off work. I don't like to train fasted, obviously, unless I'm doing upper body, because then it'll break down muscle. And if I have a long shift, if I'm working, it's a 14-hour day, then I won't train. I'll just do my rest day. Even if it's it's supposed to be a training day, I would train that day. I'll move it to the next day, because it's better for me to try and, I know everyone's always like, 20-minute workout's better than nothing. But where I'm at in my kind of bodybuilding career, I'm more concerned about getting a good training session in and being able to recover from it, and not running myself into the ground. If I'm going to do something stupid like go do cardio at 2 a.m, it's not going to actually end up helping me. Versus the next day, let's say I missed cardio on a Thursday and it's Friday. I get off at 6 p.m. and I need to still train and do cardio. What I'll do is I'll do like half of my cardio before I train really hard, do a little bit more cardio, and then like, this is just for prep. And then maybe do some like walking at night. So like, I'll always try and make it up. The only way that I got through this prep with my schedule was knowing that, knowing how to make things up. I didn't miss with my food.
Yeah.
I'd never missed with my food. Like I would make sure sometimes, you're rounding, you're seeing patients, whatever. And like, instead of it being 3 hours between meals, you get to 4. Don't double up on your meals. I've heard a lot of people being like, oh, well, it was, I was doing this or that. And then it was like 6 hours went by. And then like, I just ate 2 of my meals at once. Instead of doing that, you should eat 1 meal and then like, just try and wait for your body to digest it. And then like eat another one, like 2 hours later, if you can wait.
Yeah.
I've heard so many people being like, I was so starving. Like, first of all, don't try and get to that point. But like eating 2 of your meals at the same time kind of defeats the purpose. Then you're not really bodybuilding. You're doing more like an intermittent fasting type thing.
I love what you said about sleep. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Jordan Shallow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he told me once this story about I can't remember, but a business owner that he was working with who was working crazy hours, had a family to take care of, like a house to pay off, very, very crazy hours and hardly sleeping. And he came in to see him because he had some pain. Obviously, Jordan was practicing as a chiropractor at the time. And Jordan heard about like what his life was like. And he's like, give me your phone. He turns his phone off and he goes, you're going to sleep for an hour. I'll be back. Like, cause that's all he needed. He needed rest.
Yeah. So simple.
Yeah. You asked that one about coping with residency. This one was one of the listeners asked, it was from a wellness amateur, how to develop great glute shape and define tie-ins.
That's a great question too, because the glute development and tie-ins should go hand in hand, but not always, because you can have a lot of volume to your glutes, but if you're not doing exercises that are stretching the lower part of the glute max, stretching movements like obviously RDLs and stuff like that, real Bulgarian split squats with a deficit, things that are really going to stretch the muscle under tension, then it's going to be hard for your insertion to keep throwing more fibers over it that way. Just beefing up, like adding volume to the muscle, and things like when the muscle is contracted during hip thrusts can just beef it up. And that was, I'd say, I use myself as an example. I did a bajillion hip thrusts. I was a hip thrust queen. That's all I did. I'm not kidding you. I would do heavy hip thrusts 3-4 times a week, all different variations. I was obsessed. And I was obsessed because A, I love that feeling of getting a pump. And B, it was so effective at growing my glutes. So if you're someone who has a very small volume to your glutes, I'd say hip thrusts are king. Do a whole bunch of different, and everyone's biomechanics are slightly different. So be the person that tries the barbell, try the Smith machine, try the I don't know if you have like those hip thrust machines. Try and use all of them so you can see which angles allow you to, because sometimes it targets different parts of your glutes. So play around with that. Do double contraction hip thrusts. Do like 6 sets instead of 4. Do drop sets. Do use bands. Don't use bands. Like there's a million different things you can do with hip thrusts to make them more difficult and to keep it exciting and keep having that muscle confusion. Obviously, mastering one lift, like with a barbell for at least 8 weeks, that's important, but don't just do that. People who think they're going to do 4 sets of hip thrusts once or twice a week and experience glute growth are wrong. The glutes, the biggest muscle in your body, you cannot treat them like a baby. If you train like a baby, you train with low weight, you train only a couple times a week with your glutes, you will never see growth. That's just, unless
you're definitely not going to be a wellness competitor.
Yeah, there's absolutely not. When you train,
I don't disagree with you as far as like growing the glutes, but I think one thing that I see people really underestimate is it's called a glute ham tie-in. So you need hamstrings as well.
That's where I was going to go next. Yeah. That's for volume. Yeah. And then for like the hamstring glute tie-in, for definition, for sure, that's where you need to incorporate things like the hyperextensions. Yeah, okay, it's your lower back, but know how to round your upper back slightly so it's more glute focused. You have to make sure that you know how to position your feet and that you're not too short for the machine, too tall for the machine, so that it hits your hamstrings. Having a lot of focusing on your hamstring development absolutely is going to make sure that you have to think there's two muscles that are next to each other. If one is just kind of like big and the other one's not pushing against it, you're not going to have the definition of your time. It's going to be flat back there. So you definitely have to, and it's not just your hams. It's not just your glutes. It's your adductors. It's your quad sweep. You have to make sure that all of those things are balanced to have that weird little triangle coming down on the meat stick. So like you have this wonderful thing that everyone cares about so much.
I'm training glutes and hamstrings today, and I'm just like so motivated right now. I'm just like channeling Sunny.
Yeah.
I got told that my hamstrings are too overpowering for my legs. They're not too big, but like in comparison to the rest of my legs. So like I'm always like quads and glutes.
glutes.
Yeah.
Definition of your hamstrings. Like that definition is, I mean, I don't think that there's many people that can achieve that type of Christmas and like separation in their hamstrings. That's amazing.
I hate wearing shorts to the gym because the amount of people that just like stare at me once my legs get pumped, and I'm like, I know.
Okay, I know. Thank you. I have a question. Let's say 2 to 3 top practices for making the most out of an improvement season. And I'm going to presume the first or one of them is rest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Rest, will say that. Yeah.
Can I reframe that question? What are like 2 to 3 things that like you wish that you knew earlier that you incorporate now?
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 3 things I wish that I knew. So the 8 weeks I took during July and August was pretty much the first time that I treated an off season like a prep. I weighed every single thing I ate. I didn't cheat on my diet. I treated like it was on prep. So yeah, I was in a surplus, but there wasn't one thing. I wasn't just putting random things in my mouth, like in the kitchen, cheating. Every single thing weighed out. I was like, if I'm going to do this off season, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to gain the tissue that I need to gain. So I treated my off season like it was a prep. And, in my head, I was nervous. I was like, what if I'm always preached, you need to have time to live your life. You need to have time so that when it's time for prep, you don't feel like you were deprived. But that's not true. I didn't feel that way at all. I actually went into prep and didn't have to diet as hard because I was so religious during my building phase, my improvement phase. So that after my prep was done, this was the first prep I ever did where I came off stage, wasn't hungry, wasn't ravenous. I have not craved anything sweet. And it wasn't because of just my peak week, just my prep. It was because way back in June, I decided that I was going to be religious then so that I could set myself up for success 5 months later. So I wish I
love that.
Because I'm the first to tell you, I've gone off stage 2022 Olympia, for example. Even during the peak week, I was just dreaming. I was dreaming about food. I couldn't focus on anything. I had no energy. And I felt like I was like someone who just got out of concentration camp or with my food. Like my mom brought baked goods and I wanted to like hide. I mean, this is insane. Like I wanted to hide them from my friends and family so that they were all mine. Like I felt, you know what I'm like, and that type of behavior is a huge red flag. That's how one of the signs where like I think when you're starving and you're not willing to share your food is a huge. And I saw that I had that thought, and then I'm like, no, this isn't healthy. Like, nope, that's not who you are.
Yeah, wow.
I think that being able to dial in on your off season is huge for your prep season. I think that's what makes a really, really good athlete. There are some athletes, and these are maybe some of like the anomaly or the like the unicorns where they can just like flip a switch on and off and they can have a great prep season and then they can go hard in their off season. But I think for a lot of us, like we need to be like really, really dialed in the off season in order to have the best in season or prep.
Most people's problem, and mine, this is another thing I wish I knew. My off season, if I'm not on weighing my food, all that kind of stuff, my biggest problem, and I'm sure a lot of people, is that you just don't get enough protein in. So you're not putting on tissue. Seeming like you're bigger, but really you're just eating more carbs, more fats, and you're not actually putting on. Not at all.
I swear, I've never understood the issue with people getting protein in because I can easily eat like 200 grams of protein a day. I love I know. I love my meat.
I love it.
I do too.
Like everyone's, and I know that I need to cut down my protein, but I just love it. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. that's my like, that's going to be my weakness. It's just like I will nail everything else, but let me eat the amount of protein that I want to eat. I think we should probably wrap it up there because it's but Sunny, I'm going to get in contact with you so that we can do a live.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I would love
it.
Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up? No.
I just wanted to thank you guys. You guys are awesome to talk to. We could talk all day.
Thank you.
Like literally.
It was fun. This was awesome. I think this provided like really good insight for me. Like I'm still learning a lot about wellness, so I'm really excited to like absorb this information and just to share it as well. So thank you for being a guest and for being here and sharing your insights as well.
My pleasure. I love what you guys are doing. You guys are both awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're
Thank
our
you.
first guest, and couldn't ask for a better one.
Yeah.
So that's it.
So
You do that line.
Sorry, this is my line. That's it for this episode of Femme Radio.
So guys, so make sure that you are subscribed and connected and share us on all your social media platforms so that we can reach more people. If you think that's going to be helpful for anyone, just screenshot it, send it to them. Follow Sunny on her Instagram, Dr. Sunny Andrews. You've got 2 now. So Dr. Sunny Andrews 2 and Dr. Sunny Andrews.
Yes.
Coach Darian Bates and Courtney for life.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.